President Trump has just concluded the first meeting of his second term with Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping. The president has said he will go to China to meet Xi next year, but analysts are saying that in China, behind closed doors, many signs suggest that Xi is losing some of his grip on power. And his control of the party is waning. Joining us now to discuss is Nathan Su, Senior Investigative Reporter at the Epoch Times. Nathan, thank you so much for joining us today. So first off, can you give us...
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good afternoon to you, Nathan. Could you give us what we know so far about Trump's meeting with Xi? Did the U.S. achieve what it set out to do?
Yeah, I think Trump said on his plane coming back from South Korea to United States, he said he's going to go to China in April. And then later, after he visited Beijing, Xi Jinping is going to come to the United States to make a visit. That's all we know by now.
So on the point of the infighting, we're hearing news about this taking place within the CCP. Can you give us some insight on what the environment is like currently among Chinese officials?
Well, I think Xi Jinping is on his way going to the fundamentalist of communist ideology. So what Xi Jinping is facing his whole generations of communist leaders who grow up, and climb up their power ladder that's through this market economy booming in China. That's the whole environment. So Xi Jinping facing a lot of challenges. That's why Xi Jinping is conducting a lot of a purge to the military generals. He's done quite a bit in the last 2 terms of his leadership to the government leaders outside of the military. So now he's focusing in the military. So we're going to see a lot more purge of the generals coming, but doesn't mean Xi Jinping is losing his power. But it only means Xi Jinping wants China to go to more fundamentalist communist way.
So Nathan, in the recent shakeup of the regime's leadership during its Fourth Plenum, a number of Xi's close allies were sidelined. Who was driving these changes?
I think it's Xi Jinping himself who is driving this whole direction of a purge of generals. Not Zhang Youxia, okay? So that's, I totally disagree of those people who thinking somebody else is driving the purge of all these generals. Now, you have to look at a lot bigger picture. The bigger picture is Xi Jinping has to deal with a whole generation of leaders, including military leaders, who climb up their power ladder, in the way of market economy. It's booming in China. So Xi Jinping is facing a lot of a challenge of those. Now, think about this. In the entire Chinese military, besides Zhang Youxia himself, Zhang Youxia was promoted to the 3-star general in 2011. Now, besides him, every other general, either 1-star or 3 stars, all have been promoted by Xi Jinping. I mean the generals who are currently still serving in the military. So anybody being taken down, you can say, oh, that's Xi Jinping's own people. But what about the rest of them who has not been taken down? There are 2 dangerous things that are very, there are 2 mentalities are very dangerous to the situation that will lead our thoughts that dealing with the threat from Chinese communist regime. Now, make no mistake, Chinese communist regime is the biggest threat in the entire human history to peace and humanity. Nobody else, you cannot pick any other regime that poses more threat than the Chinese communist regime today. So therefore, there are 2 different type of dangerous mentality we need to avoid. Number one is thinking China is our competitor. No, China is not our competitor. The communist regime is our biggest enemy. And number 2, the mentality of thinking tomorrow the communist regime will all collapse by itself. Both of these kind of a mentality will eventually lead to us thinking, oh, the threat will not be there tomorrow. We don't have to worry about that much. If we have that kind of thinking, think about what are the people in South Korea, in Taiwan, and in Philippines. They are in a much more complex situation dealing with their society. What they are going to think? Are they going to, we want them to increase their defense budget, but we are actually leading them thinking, the communist regime will just all collapse by themselves. That's very dangerous.
Okay, I just want to follow up on one of your points saying that China is not a competitor to the U.S. China is an enemy to the U.S. Is it possible for the U.S. to collaborate with China on certain aspects, but not collaborate with China on other aspects? What is your stance on this argument?
We need to deal with them. The fundamental goal is to defend the peace. That's the key. President Trump needs to do whatever he's able to defend the peace, because we are living in the most dangerous time window of the next 5 years. From next year to 2030, that's the most dangerous time. We're facing the highest possibility of going to a war with the communist regime. Now, after 2030, the possibility of war will start declining, and I think if we can sustain the peace until 2035. After that, the possibility of facing a war in Western Pacific will go much lower.
Okay, so going back to Xi Jinping's position in the party, can you help us get into his mind just a little bit? Do you think he feels threatened about his power right now within the Communist Party?
I don't think so. First of all, all the Politburo of the Communist Party, including Zhang Youxia, were hand-selected by him. So nobody really challenging him in the Politburo, which is the highest position. It's the highest, the leadership circle in CCP. So what Xi Jinping's challenge is, it's like he's facing a whole generation of leaders who all, have this market economy growing, booming in China. They're all corrupted. So Xi Jinping's, in Xi Jinping's eyes, all these people doesn't have enough loyalty to the fundamentalist, the communist ideology. That's his problem. And that's why Xi Jinping is, you look at Xi Jinping, the difference between Xi Jinping and Chairman Mao. Chairman Mao, he keep all his same generation leaders, every one of them, they will serve until they die. They never retire. But Xi Jinping is different. Xi Jinping, ever since he took over the top post of the CCP, he has been retiring, every term. At the end of the term, all his, colleagues will retire. So the maximum is one or two of them will serve like 1 or 2 terms. The rest of them will all gone. And the only one that's been going with him all 3 terms so far is the Politburo member Huang Huning, a very fundamental communist ideology, keeper. So you can see that's clearly that's the direction he's moving towards to, and you can also see how, what kind of challenge you're facing him.
Okay, Nathan, just real quick, I want to ask you one more question here. What do you think about the possibility, if any at all, of new leadership within the CCP other than Xi Jinping?
I don't see any light in that thought.
Short and sweet, Nathan. That should do it for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.